And welcome. I'm so excited for another episode of, or I should say, another talk in our series, uh, Conversations with the Past. Sorry, I'm also adding people in as I talk. My name is Becca Tamel, and I'm the Program and Outreach Coordinator at the Chapman Museum. And like I said, if you haven't already, please mute your mics. We appreciate it. If you do have a question during the presentation, you are more than welcome to type that question in the chat. And then what I'll do at the end is I'll read those questions aloud, and Bill, if he's able to, will answer them to the best of his ability. All right. All right, so tonight we have a very special presentation by Bill Powers. He is the founder of Reaper Paranormal. GrimReaper Paranormal is a paranormal research group based in Saratoga County, and they were founded in 2020. Bill founded the group after 12 years of solo investigation, and since that time, he and his group have filmed and investigated 650 cases around the country, and as well as released several paranormal documentaries on numerous streaming platforms. So very cool. Grim Reaper Paranormal collects evidence by using some of the latest photographic, video, and digital audio technology. They combine this with a very thorough investigation process and research. Prior to the start of any investigation, they utilize a multifaceted research approach, which helps them locate specific information related to the history of, the structure, the client, and the surrounding area. So they are very detailed with their work. And Grim Reaper Paranormal conducted several, I think, investigations at the Chapman Museum back in 2024. So tonight, Bill is going to be sharing the evidence that he found while doing those investigations. So, Bill, now I'm going to turn it over to you and your presentation on paranormal activity at the Chapman.
How you doing, everyone? This presentation has been, it's where that I can use a very complex endeavor in all all the investigations. We record not only audio, video, but also photographic evidence. We have compiled here roughly, I went through 40 hours worth of audio files, 132 hours worth of video, and several hundred photos that I compiled all together over the last several months. What I'm going to actually do, I have a little short introduction, and then from there, it will just roll into the various different pieces of evidence. And I'm sure, Rebecca, that you're going to have a bunch of different, if you want to question me after each particular section, feel free to ask questions.
That sounds good. We'll do. So, people, if you heard that, if you have a question after a particular piece of evidence, type it in the chat, and I'll read it aloud to Bill, and he'll give us an answer, or at least try to.
And what I'll do is will pull up with this a image of the whole Chapman family. I'll actually pause it then, so if anybody has any questions, I'll answer them then. And if people want to have a particular clip slowed down even more, I can even do that for them if they like. Pause it right here for this particular room, and I'll actually click on here so that way you can actually see it. I mean, Beth, I'm sure, or Rebecca, sorry, I apologize. Too many names today. Um, I'm sure you see this room all the time. This particular room, it was very surprising from the standpoint of the mirror over here. I mean, this is the north wall where my pointer is, and between the mirror that's in that corner and the amount of activity that we compiled over all the video, it was very intriguing compared to what I decided to call the doll room. And it only seemed appropriate considering with the cradle and the three dolls that were in there. I mean, those two rooms in particular, there was a lot of different activity. For this particular room, there's more uh, various different orbs. I know that there's different specks of dust. As the video goes along, you will actually see uh, different types of phenomena will actually start to appear out of the mirror, which will segue into, if I remember correctly, when I compiled everything, put it together, it went from this room over to the doll room before everything went downstairs. But there was so many uh, orbs that came out of the mirror that when we were reviewing everything and we all looked at it, we realized, and we really do believe that for this particular mirror, that it's a portal. Just as if there's that huge mirror, which is downstairs, what we call the music room near the piano. And that was one of the things which, as I speak, and I just realized that I didn't include in the video, but I'll make a note to include it at a later date, where we have video that shows the mirror on the first floor, and you can see the same type of phenomena coming out of that mirror as well. And I mean, that mirror is also on the north wall, the north side of the property, and it's on an exterior wall. So in theory, we believe that it is in fact a portal. I'll actually advance through the next one, that bit of evidence that we have right now. And some of these, when I put them all together, I it's a blur as to which clips I actually chose. Trying to remember for this one. I see what it is. No, I'll actually back it up a little bit. So what I'll actually do is I'll pause it right here for a second, and I'll just ask if uh and everybody can use the group chat if what did you see in that particular clip? And if you saw anything, please put it in the form of a comment.
So Susan says she saw a few things, a white orb in the mirror, and my students, she brought students to the museum to do a ghost hunt back in, I think it was November, said that a black figure is running across the room.
And that's the one interesting thing that's about the the paranormal is that I see one thing, and when I actually look at this particular clip, and I'll slow it down in a second, and I want to say what it's at 30% right now, roughly around 30%. I'll slow it down even further, which will drag out the length of the clip, so it will play slower. But when I look at it, the only thing that I see is the phenomena that's in this particular corner over here. I don't see anything else that's in the video. So to hear that there's an actual uh, black object, I guess would be the word that I could use. Um, I'm very interested in that, which actually makes me think of the black mist that I've experienced several times at the museum. And Nicole was actually, I was talking with her for one investigation, and I was at I guess you could say for the customer service desk down in the gift shop. And I was looking down towards the hallway, towards where if I remember from memory, there used to be, I don't want to say a sofa, but there was a hassock, I guess you could say. And there was a bunch of gallery photos. And I remember seeing out of the corner of my eye, when I was talking to Nicole, I glanced over because I saw an object move, and I saw a black mist go from left to right
Wow.
across the room as if it was heading in towards where the dining room is. And I ran over to where it was, and of course, by then it was already gone. And but for the black mist, that just popped in my head for what I thought. But let me slow this down. Great.
And Kelly adds that she saw a fast orb coming from the mirror.
70. This is going to be pretty slow, but we will roll with it and we will see. Oh, just saw that one. There's the one. Look about that one more time. This thing. This will be the last time that I do this, and then I'll go on to the next one.
Karen says, I saw something move fast in the mirror, and Mike says, I saw a light object in the mirror. So that mirror has got a lot of activity around it.
Oh, the mirror is absolutely amazing, and I mean, and there's so much activity that's throughout the whole building. And I don't know,
And Susan says, we saw something in the mirror as well.
the this room, I absolutely love them. These two rooms in particular, uh, are probably two of my most favorite rooms, just based on the amount of activity that is within the video, but actually being there. And I have so much footage, I could actually probably do another presentation like this and compile more specifically for the doll room. But I know that for the doll room in particular, we were there. And I remember the first time that I went there by myself, and it was just to capture B-roll footage. And I went up the front stairway and how there's the rounded corner. And I remember filming it several times, and I stopped right at the set of the stairs. And I put my cell phone down, and I had a couple other devices in my pocket. And I was kneeling down, and the door that's to the offices was closed, and the doorknob jiggled. And scared the heck out of me, looked at the door, and one of the devices that I had on in my pocket, I pulled it out and looked at the screen, and it said, "Come back by yourself," which I viewed it as a form of a challenge. And I was like, okay, definitely. But getting back to for the doll room, I have so much material of a time lapse video where I put an EMF meter on top of the one doll that's in the cradle, probably for a period of about maybe 20, 25 minutes. I'd have to go back and look at the timer count. And the whole time that it was on top of that particular doll, the meter was pegged the whole time. And I started doing a checklist automatically of, okay, are there power lines outside? Is there an electric line, for example, in the flooring or one of the walls? Look underneath the crib, see if there's any, for example, extension cords, or what other possible power sources might be on that could actually help to generate this field. And everything was obviously it was electrified, but everything was off that was nearby. I took photos of the outside. There's no power lines that are on the outside of the museum in the front, because obviously aesthetically it doesn't look too pleasing to see the wires in the front of the building. Um, Seeing a time frame of 20 plus minutes with a high EMF, just constantly pegging between yellow to red the whole time. It was like, this room is so special, in the amount of activity that exists within this room, which I did include clips of that, plus the actual various different EVPs that we captured. Uh, in particular in January, which was our first investigation. And in that particular January, uh, we ran, I want to say it was 5 different digital recorders. And I mean, if we every individual and every particular group has their own theory as to the amount of equipment. Should they, for example, walk around with a digital recorder and just go from room to room to room? Or if you have the equipment, put in a digital recorder into each particular area that has activity in an effort you maximize the recording audio because you never truly know what you're going to record once you actually leave that particular location. And that was a strategy that we went in with to have multiple different recording devices for audio, plus our DVR system to capture the maximum amount of activity for pretty much every particular room. But the EVPs in particular for the doll room, some of them are really cool, and I've heard singing, heard laughing. It's some of them I'll play at the end, and I'll play a couple times, and I'll actually upload them to social media again, and I'll put them on our website or and even YouTube for some of the responses and some of the things. And I mean, I could talk about it for an hour just for the EVPs by themselves. Well, let me go into the to the next clip. I saw that one that was in the upper left corner. Well, the next one, and the next time for the image, I'll pause it.
So both I and Susan and her crew said that we saw an orb float across the headboard of the bed.
Mhm. Yes,
And Kelly Abbott says ditto.
there's a lot of orbs, and orbs are very tricky. They're tricky from the standpoint of, is it truly an orb? Is it dust? Is it a speck that could possibly be on the lens of your phone or a GoPro or a video camera? And a lot of it is based, you look at it enough, you can tell from looking at it what is an orb and what is not. If you're getting like a really weird change of motion, and then in all reality, it's an orb. I mean, looking at these, you look at some of them and you can, I mean, this is a night vision DVR system that you're using. So, I mean, in theory, if there was a piece of dust that was going by and it was large enough, it could technically come across as an orb. But I'm like looking at these, it's like, no, it's that's not dust. It's definitely some type of paranormal phenomenon.
Mike adds orb over the bed, right to left.
Yes. Yep. All right, I'll pause it right there just because I happen to see it. And everybody see like for an uh for an orb that's coming out of the mirror. I'll actually back it up to the beginning. And I know that this will replay a couple times where I slowed it down even more. But pay in particular attention to the mirror itself.
Oh, wow.
Now we captured all this even before I we put all the cameras in, just started rolling right away, just to capture, just to see what we would capture out there. And at some point when we were actually the cameras were rolling, I walked around the whole building with a walkie-talkie. And I mean, Nicole was there, and her husband was there at the time, and he actually manned the DVR system, and he was helping me to center all the cameras. So some of this was already captured even before we moved the cameras. I mean, this particular clip is one of my favorites just from actually being able to see what appears to be the orb actually coming out of the mirror itself. The next photo, I'll pause it.
Mike says small light object moves from the middle to the bottom of the mirror.
Yeah, there's a lot of this particular action which you will see of objects that will appear out of the mirror, and they'll do some sort of a sweeping motion. And there's other video that I have where once the camera is moved and the angle is changed slightly, you can see more into. I, I want to say this is the bathroom, if I remember correctly. Actually, no, this might be the hallway because there's a bathroom that's over here. And based on the angle in which where how the camera is, we wouldn't see in there. So this has to be the hallway. But I know at one point during for one section of video, you can see more of the doorway. And at one point during the investigation, I have a video clip of you can make out what word did I want to use? A shadow person or a shadow figure, and you can make out the silhouette peeking out around like a door frame and then peeking back in. And I watched it a bunch of different times and I compared the time and other particular videos, other particular rooms to see if, for example, it's a car going by outside and the light's being cast into the museum itself, and perhaps it's just doing light throw, which was causing it. But in this particular case, upon reviewing it, and I have to repull the evidence and compare it and compile a video just on that particular section from the many different angles, but you can see something peek out and then peek back in. And when we first watched it, I mean, it gave us a chill. There's no doubt about that. And it's you see it in a lot of locations, but for this particular location, and like all this was the first investigation, and we got so much in the first investigation. It still excites us, and I mean, we just talk about Chapman. It's such an amazing location. And this one's a pretty good one as well. Just from the slowed down angle, and you can actually get a a better view of the object zooming across the screen from a right to left motion. The actual video speed with them at 100%, the video clips are so short. They look elongated on the viewing bar, but when I compiled everything and put them together at 100% speed, it's you're talking about maybe a 5 second clip, if that. And I had to slow everything down in order for everybody to be able to see it. This particular clip is really cool. I love this particular one.
Karen says it looks like, I'm assuming she meant that orb. It looks like it came out of the mirror.
Once it pops up, all right, let me pause it and I'll actually back it up frame by frame. Actually, looks like it came from above the mirror based on the angle. And it's a good possibility. I mean, it could have came from the mirror, but I mean, we can see the whole mirror completely. So I'm thinking that it was, I know that in this particular corner, there was other things that were there. If I remember right from memory, there was the vanity, but there's something else that was next to it. Because I remember that for this particular room, there was a lot of stuff that was in there. My challenge was to try to fit a camera in there and try to record everything. All right, my favorite room, one of my favorite rooms.
Oh. So Susan's got students and they have a question. They want to know if there is a figure standing in the mirror in the corner. They said it's hard to tell, but Susan didn't
No,
see. No.
right here.
I think they met in the old room, the room you showed before. The 1910 room with the bathroom that we were watching the orb come out of the mirror. Yeah. So they're wondering if there's a figure in the mirror, but I
So
think that
right
might
there,
be, yeah, I think that's
it,
actually a stand.
I was going to say, I believe it was, and I know that I have photos of it because when we first looked at this, we first saw, I can't remember if it was a light that was there or it was light thrown from the outside, but we had to look at the various different photos. You look at it, and I mean, it looks as if there's something that's there, right where the pointer is, and I'll move it out of the way so you can see it.
Mm.
But I mean, if to the naked eye, it looks like there's something that's there, but there's what is called pareidolia, where you can become possible. There's nothing there, but your brain is deciphering the various different pixels and different assemble an image. Now, the amount of activity that from the ballroom is amazing. The number of orbs, like the one that just went across the screen, is right to black. And we captured so many orbs that not just right to left, left or right, up and down, in various different angles, different speeds. Now that one in particular, when looking at it, it appears as if it's going into the closet, but then again, the door frame or the door is on the other side of the corner here. So it's like, was the spirit going into the closet itself, or was it going out into the hallway into a different section of the building?
Hmm. So again, if you notice something, feel free to add it to the chat, and then I'll read it aloud for Bill to hear. Kelly says she sees a white orb moving from the floor moving left.
No, this one, yeah, they're pretty good actually see once slowing down the video itself. You all have to pause it. Kind of, well, let's see.
Oh, and Mike says it came from the bottom left side of the screen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, keeping it still as an image compared to the you look at some of them have really unique shape. And some of them, from watching various different video clips that I some of them are around. Other ones have. This was actually the first investigation. I figured if I'm going to throw them into play, I was going to throw them into plays that new cat activity to it, and they absolutely love the cat.
So these are investigators with your team?
These are investigators that I brought on probably about a year ago. And Melissa, who just actually walked around the corner, and that Jennifer just walked out. Uh, they were friends. They both applied at the same time. They both knew each other, and I was like, was trying to grow our group, and I still am trying to grow the group. But I like they had everything that I was looking for, so I brought them on board, and they worked out fantastic.
Oh, Mike said two-legged orbs.
That's what I was talking about for the various different shapes, because some of them they the shapes are unique, and it's like a snowflake. One, there's never one that's the same. I mean, there's video clips that I had that I looked at last night, actually, were for the doll room itself, where I can't remember who was walking out, but I had video of where it was 4 or 5 orbs would be walking out of the doorway, or excuse me, floating out the doorway at the same time. And it would be, for example, 1 or 2 at a time, and then there would be 2 or 3 more, and you could tell that they were all coming from various different directions.
Hmm. Donna asks, do you have any idea about who these spirits are?
Some of them, yes, there is one in particular. All right, so there's two, and I apologize for just jumping around like that. Um, During the course of the first investigation, we made contact with a what we to be a little boy named Timmy,
Hmm.
and I know that obviously, like yourself, and besides obviously emailing Nicole, I email a lot with Maureen, and uh, I had her look into the history of the the drum that's in the collections room
Mhm.
because in it's our theory that there's this little boy named Timmy, which we have audio of from uh, verifies that particular drum dates back to the American Revolution,
Wow.
which as a history buff, I was absolutely in love with hearing that information that it had ties or was believed to have had ties to the spiritual battle.
Karen asks, did anyone else see a light blob in the top right corner of the narrow window that was there for a while in the beginning and is now not there?
For this window,
Yeah, that would be the window she's referring
I would I have to go back. I mean, I don't want to say that it's a green light because obviously if it was a green light, you would keep it shine and it comes in. I mean, well, I know that this particular night when we were recording, everything was totally dark. Yeah.
to. Yep.
Kind of the video that not like before. I get more excited over the actual audio portion than I do the visual portion. I mean, when because with reviewing this, obviously our DVR system had its microphone capability, but I was not recording the audio, it was only the video. So a lot of this I watched as all of us watched with no sound. And um, I found that the audio is more fascinating. How does a spirit speak? How do they manipulate their energy to generate words? Um, Obviously, in theory, they are a former person, but they still have their webcam. It's just amazing to think about how how we someday. I know various different paranormal groups get out of theories what we think, how orbs and how phenomena occur. So that's one of the reasons that we great, but not this is great. I think right there, being new was more or less in charge of taking the various different photographs that we had and asked various different questions among the different rooms this particular night. And I know that if I remember correctly, for when he was in the dollar room, kept sensing presence. I know anytime that I get near the building, even if I'm just driving by, I can sense them from the road. That is one of the first time that I was actually there for the walk.
Oh, Mike just added that Kelly, who is one of our volunteers at the museum, saw the drummer boy and called him Timmy.
Really? That is very cool. The amount of history that exists within the you have you have history of the building. You have the geology in what falls and built on top of both of us that are in the paranormal. There's this area that there's limestone that's around limestone. The paranormal kind of go hand in hand. And doing all the research. And I actually have the research file next to me. It's probably about maybe this thick, just various different photos and geology reports where I actually looked into the geology to see how thick the limestone was roughly around Chapman. And it gave a range, which I don't remember offhand the actual number of what it was, but it gave a range for the limestone. It's like, well, maybe that's one of the reasons why uh, for Glens Falls, there's so much activity as a whole on top of all the history around not only the city itself, but the surrounding area. And this might be the actual clip with Nicole, if I remember correctly. I'll pause it in a second in case anybody's wondering why I have a doll sitting on top of the counter. In this particular clip, there's so much activity. And the woman that's in the middle, that is Melissa. And she has been a phenomenal addition. And we work very well together in not only asking questions, but in investigating. We've achieved some very interesting results on different investigations with the different styles that we use. And that's one of the keys for success for investigating, especially if you have multiple people that are involved. And but she's been absolutely wonderful. And I know that for this book, there's just so many more. There's different things. And well, some of it could be dust. Just the various different motions, the different speed, different shapes. I mean, and we really do believe that a lot of the orbs that were present on the screen just a few seconds ago are in fact phenomena. And I keep waiting for the actual orb itself because there's one orb in particular that goes from the top of this, roughly around the top of the screen, or the right hand side of the screen, and it kind of goes down towards the light. and what looks like a chair in this section, and it makes a swooping motion towards the doll before it heads over towards Nicole. And that's where it goes roughly right around her right elbow when it touches her. Here it is. And there's her reaction. I remember when this happened, and I actually discovered the video and I texted it over to her, and how excited she was over that it was captured on video with the orb swooping down and making contact, and just the her physical reaction by the turning around. I know at one point I counted all the different orbs in the different shapes that I saw. And I can't remember the number, but I know that there was over I got over 16 different uh shapes that I originally counted. If I remember correctly from my notes. I mean, just for here, there's a swooping down from right to left that heads towards the door. And I thought I counted two, three, wasn't there. There you go. There was two that were almost looked like they were side by side. There's a lot of images and a lot of video that we captured where some of them are single and other ones are in pairs. And one of the things that we wondered was if, for example, is it a spirit that's with a loved one, or is it just two individual spirits and they're both going out the door at the same time, but they're on totally different planes? And even for the K2 meter, there's a K2 meters here, and you can see it. I noticed it about 30 seconds ago where it was already starting to light up with different EMF fields that it's sensing. But the whole room itself has such high EMF, particularly over the crib itself. And the lights that you can see draped over that look like Christmas lights, it's a, and I apologize, I completely blanked out with the correct name for it, live wire, if I remember correctly. It's a EMF cable that at one time, you could buy, believe it or not, on Amazon. It's been on various different paranormal shows, like with Amy and Adam. That's where I first saw it, and I started looking into the history of it, and I picked one of those up. And each particular light is an actual EMF sensor, and the light colors will change individually based on the EMF. And there's the orb that's going over towards her elbow, the reaction. And that is a Bluetooth speaker. And I had on an app at the time. There's various different apps, and everybody has their own personal favorite that they use. For years, I've consistently have used Necrophonic. Necrometer is another one. They're both developed by the same uh, software engineer and that I've become friends with. And so I've learned a lot about the insight of the actual device itself. But in this particular case, there was Necrophonic was on, and it was um, spitting out different words. It's almost as if it's a uh, think of a dictionary. And in theory, spirits can use sensors within, for example, your cell phone, and it will spit out different words. And with how it, what word that I want to use, with how it's generates the wording, sometimes the words will come out individual, sometimes they will come out in the form of a sentence. And in this particular case, for the doll room itself, we actually had the device on for quite a bit. And I don't remember what the audio said at that particular time. I'd have to find the audio file and then actually compare it to the timestamp to see what was actually said. But I'm willing to bet you there was some sort of uh, a response that was said at the same time that Nicole's elbow got touched. And then just a second, I'll actually pause this. Give me a moment. I apologize for the disarray here. I had it in a folder and then I lost it. I was reshuffling everything. Let's see here. I haven't really talked about the third floor much. Um, the third floor had some very interesting activity. We didn't spend as much time yet as we would like up there. Um, I know initially we were told that the light likes to come on for the third floor. And uh, I know that for the last couple of times that we've gone up there to see a Thunder game, I'll actually drive by the museum to see if the light is on before I make the trek back down towards Stillwater. So I can be like, hey, I got to see if it's on. And my daughter will usually roll her eyes like a teenager would do and be like, why can't you? Why? Like, really, you got to do this all the time? And it's like, yes, I do. Now, here's one of the
Does the red mean anything? Or is that just the way it always is?
yes, yes, and I'll actually pause it. Let me zoom in a little bit. So the red in I apologize that it's sideways. I wasn't thinking that the image was going to pull up like this, but the red would be for the highest rating for the EMF. And green, which is all the way over here, is actually uh, on the lesser end of the spectrum. And the whole time that we were in this particular room, in this, trying to remember off the top of my head, we went there in August of 23. I'm gonna want to say that it was either December or January of 24. But the whole time that I was there, and I remember the museum was open that particular day. So I was talking lower, because I don't want people, if there's any visitors that are downstairs, it's like, all right, what's this strange guy doing upstairs talking to himself? And so I used a more quieter tone than I would usually use. Um, but red, yes, is on the higher end of the spectrum, and this is a REM pod. Basically, it emits its own uh, field. You get within, for example, about 3 to 4 inches of the antenna itself, and it will actually light up. And there's four different lights that are on the front of it over in here. And if your hands, for example, within 2 inches, it'll be one color, and the closer you get, the all the LED lights will light up, and the color or the sound goes up in pitch, which is one way as to how we identify as to how close uh, a spirit could be to that particular object.
And then the monitor that's on that doll, is that
Yes,
indicating anything?
that is a millimeter, and I'll actually, that's actually not too bad. I wish it was more vertical, but beggars can't be choosers. A millimeter is a device which was developed by a guy named Gary Gulka. Oh God, I want to say probably about maybe 20 years ago, somewhere around there. It became famous on Ghost Adventures many, many years ago. Gary Gulka, excuse me, had a daughter who passed away, and uh, he has a electrical engineering background, and him and his wife started experiencing uh, phenomena after his daughter passed. And I can't remember exactly what she passed away from, but the Mel refers to her name because if I remember correctly, her name was Melissa. But for this particular device, there's an on-off, besides the on-off function, it will do EMF, which is what the lights are on the top. And the lights are very similar to a K2 meter. It goes from green all the way to red. This one, the numbers on it being 00 is the EMF itself. It also does a temperature reading down in this particular section here. And I have a few of them, but this particular one there's a button that's over on the side. So if, for example, the doll room is getting hotter, there's a little LED light that will glow red and it will emit a tone, or it will glow blue if it's getting colder. And it's just another way to where it might be possible for investigators to use, for example, the temperature shift in a building and or a location as a sign that spirit is manifesting or is getting ready, possibly even to show itself. Let's see what other ones I have here. And I'll go back into the drive folder. Hopefully the audio or video will.
I was just gonna say, what do you hear in it?
Um,
Because you said this was in the doll room.
this was in the doll room. Um, it says at one portion of it, it says, yes,
Oh,
it's sparkly. And then there's a male voice that says up. There's a laugh. And if I remember correctly, the laugh is right in here. It goes quiet through this section, but then there's a door slamming, which is in here. And there's more talking that is over in this section through that's through here. I'm,
did a door actually slam?
no, there
Okay.
was no door slamming whatsoever. And at this point, we were in a different section of the museum that this clip was being recorded. And so and we believe that it's um I mean there's residual responses and we believe that this is a residual response. I mean there's what is known as the stone tape theory, and the stone tape theory is, I guess you could say, anything that is organic or for example or of a crystal or a stone, for example limestone, granite in particular. Granite is really known to for the stone tape theory. But generally, organic material, in theory, they believe absorbs energy. And uh, so perhaps that this particular audio clip is of a conversation that somebody had at one point within uh, the museum itself, maybe when the Chapmans actually owned it, because some of these responses don't make sense. Like, yes, it's sparkly. And we had cat balls that we were using at the museum for one of the investigations, which are sparkly. They weren't on, uh, or they didn't generate any sort of response. They didn't sparkle whatsoever, other when we turned them on and we kind of showed the spirits how we actually use uh, the device. Unless, for example, the spirit was referring to that, but for the door slamming, it wouldn't make sense for with where it fit within the investigation. So we're kind of thinking that this particular clip is definitely a residual response. But I know there was one clip that I have, and I don't know if it's in this section. I might have to locate it and post it on social media. But there was one clip in particular where we were setting up and on the uh, one of the floors. I want to say it was the second floor. We picked up a female voice saying, uh, I don't know if she was in the hallway or if she was in the doll room itself, but it recorded saying almost as if she was singing, "Don't stop and talk to me." And so it's like I want to say you want it. It was something like that, but it was "Don't stop and talk to me." And it's the weirdest audio clip that I I've heard in such a long time. And if I can find it.
Well, what you have shared has been fascinating, so I truly appreciate that. And I guess for everyone, stay tuned for part two. We're going to try and get Bill back, and we'll see some more evidence that he has.